Welcome to Beyond the Matrix. Greetings, everybody. It's me, Patricia Cori, Beyond the Matrix, and I have back with me the wonderful Brad Olsen. You remember I had him on before, and holy man, we had one dynamic conversation, especially about what he was going through with Morgellons and you know, the whole scene. But before I get rolling, I just want to make a disclaimer, and that is, in case you haven't intuited from my posts, I have gotten my knuckles wrapped by the tubers. So we cannot discuss the snake bite. We cannot discuss the Jabberwocky, even in code, because they're looking to take down my channel. So Brad and I will probably find a way to bring it into the conversation, but only very carefully, because what we really want to focus on today is what lies ahead in 2020. Where are we now and what lies ahead? And let's hope and see if we can pull up some optimism in this marasm of chaos that is underway. Just before I get rolling, I just want to introduce, of course, Brad is he is a fellow conspiracy realist. He is a researcher, esoteric wisdom keeper, a prolific author, 8 million things conference speaker. He's one of the voices that you want to be hearing over time, and especially now, bringing out truth and truth as he understands it, truth as I understand it too. I have to say that when I read Brad's book, Beyond Esoteric, which I will have him highlight at the end of the conversation, I was like, yep. Oh my God, this guy's my kindred spirit. So, hi, Brad. Thanks for being back on.
It's great to be on with you, Patricia, and to see the beautiful Azores Islands in the background.
Yeah.
Been always dreaming of going there. It looks like such a beautiful area.
Well, come on over. While you know, there must be a way. I mean, pretty soon we'll probably be able to teleport soon. That'll be the only way we'll be able to travel, right?
Hey, we'll take it. Because I've always dreamed about checking out that underwater pyramid right offshore of the Azores Islands. And
well, that is offshore. It's offshore from another island called San Miguel. And the Navy, when you know the story, the fisherman found it. It was supposedly a perfect crystalline day. We have a lot of those here. He was not your dinghy type fisherman. He had a sophisticated boat. But the Navy swooped down and said, "You never saw that. It wasn't there. It was your imagination. They're not, you know, it's gone." So nobody really knows exactly where it is but him. And I think he went silent. But yeah, it's the Atlantis. It's an archipelago of 9 islands. I've never doubted him for a minute that it's Atlantis. And I've said this over and over again, that the people here, the older people, know it. And when I can get them engaged, they say, "Yes, we know Atlantis."
There is so much that's coming out about underwater archaeology.
It is amazing.
The Mayan city off of the coast of Cuba that was discovered about 15 years ago, and I have pictures of that in my other esoteric book, Modern Esoteric, as well as off of Yonaguni in the island chain south of Japan, south of Okinawa, almost to Taiwan. And the Bimini Roads, of course, just across from you, basically, right there in the Atlantic. Yeah. And then, so now this pyramid, I've recently seen a sonar scan of it. It is a perfectly 4-sided pyramid.
Absolutely.
I just can't really determine the depth, if it's possible to scuba dive to it. 150 to 200 feet is about the max down a recreational scuba diver can go. But
you know, another very curious thing is that I heard, and it's kind of hush-hush, that there's a place off of my island. It's about a 6-hour ride by boat, way out, that they call the Atlantis Mound. And apparently there has been a significant number of investigators coming to check it out. And rumor that I got from a marine biologist here is that there's some sort of mineral that they're finding most interesting. So there are supposedly, it's all supposedly because it's word of mouth, tech people that are coming in at a high level, that are wanting to get their hands on this mineral. So I don't know more about it yet, and it's very hard to get the information because it's kind of like one of those things you don't talk about. But yeah, we get some pretty considering this is a small little island and a tiny little port, we get some very interesting ships coming in here and parking for a month, research ships, right?
Oh,
A lot underwater here, that is to be sure.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
lot
if you look at it
underwater
from the
there.
point of view of the Atlantean continent, from Iceland all the way down to Antarctica, you've got this ridge, you've got this structure of a continent. I believe these 9 islands, just as Plato said, outside the Pillars of Hercules. Well, if you go directly out from the Pillars of Hercules, sorry, the Straits of Gibraltar, west, you've got the Azores.
Yep.
Right?
And the mid-Atlantic ridge in which you referred to, which goes from Iceland, which is also known as the island of fire and ice, all the way down into the southern hemisphere, and it connects into the Neuschwabenland area of Antarctica, which was claimed by the Nazis World War II. And in that area of Antarctica, they landed a seaplane on the Schumacher Ponds. There are lakes there that never freeze because they're warmed from the geothermal activity. And I do believe that's one of the reasons why the Nazis chose that area. Not only could they get their U-boat submarines deep into some of the under ice fjords, but they could also entrain the geothermal energy to power, heat underground bases, use it for any number of things. And that's a volcanic ridge that is one of the longest on the planet. It goes right on down all the way through Antarctica.
Yeah, so when people say, you mean Azores is Atlantis? I say, no, Azores, I believe, are peaks of the Atlantean continent, or perhaps pieces that broke off, who knows? But, you know, Atlantis was immense, as we, I think, agree. And as Plato said, this is no island, this is a great land. So here we are.
Indeed. Of course, we've heard so much about the active volcano in the Canary Islands, and now that has really brought a lot of attention to this volcano system. But what's also interesting in the Canaries is an island called Fuerteventura. Did I pronounce that wrong?
Fuerteventura?
Yes. And there was a submarine U-boat Nazi base on the very southern tip of that island. And here's another place I would love to go scuba dive. Apparently you can get in there and see it. And this was a place that they could refit the U-boats and refuel, resupply. It's just right off the coast of Morocco. And then they could head straight on down. Right below South Africa is where the Nazi claim was. Now, if you look on maps, it's called Queen Maud Land, but every once in a while, you'll see an old globe that still calls it Neuschwabenland. So that's really interesting. I would love to do
that's in Antarctica? Sorry, I got confused.
Yes, Queen Maud Land is the region in Antarctica that was claimed by the Nazis. That's how you'll see it on most globes or maps. But every once in a while, they still also will underline Neuschwabenland.
Wow. Where you've been.
Where I've been, yeah. But I would love to come to the Azores and the Canary Islands, even La Palma, to see this volcano, which never ceases to stop erupting. I wonder.
Funny that, huh?
Game here.
Yeah. So it's just, when you think about the fact that the powers that are still and going, hopefully, have that much control over the global climate and over the geothermal Earth body. And, you know, it's sometimes it's more than I could bear to think. They've got all the tools, they've got all these tools, and they're just turning them on all at once right now. I mean, what is your understanding of what's happening? I mean, the volcanoes are erupting all over the planet. And who was it? Nostradamus said when all the volcanoes, I think he said when the volcanoes are going off on the four corners of the earth, you will know that it's the end of days.
The end of days. Now, Beyond Esoteric has been doing very well. It's now going into its fourth printing. It only came out about a year ago. And in the fourth printing, I used the opportunity to add some new photos. And one of them was La Palma on October 23rd. Do you remember the perfect grid signature of earthquakes?
Yes.
Well, nature does not work in perfect grid forms. So as you say, there are weather modification weapons. There is also the HARP devices. There are also ways that they're changing the atmosphere with the geoengineering programs and putting particulate matter into the atmosphere, making the atmosphere conductive. Normally it's totally neutral, but now it's conductive, so they're able to steer these storms. We had out here in California, where I'm at, this incredible storm in middle October when storms never come. Now it's already December, bone dry, beach weather ever since that event, Patricia, and they're starving us for water right now. And I'm a big snow skier. I can't wait for sea season to start, but there's just no snow up there. Instead, BC, Canada is just being flooded, inundated with record rain.
The pictures of BC are shocking.
Shocking.
Well, of course, but they've got to sell the green agenda, right?
Right. And so that's the whole ulterior motive, that they're doing all this geoengineering, but they're saying, oh, it's all the humans' fault, this climate change and the planetary warming. How come geoengineering never factors into any climate change discussion on the mainstream media? Why isn't little Greta so upset about all the chemtrailing? He never brings that up. Oh, but it's all shame on you for all your carbon. Look, life needs carbon to breathe, all the plants.
You know,
the CO2 is absorbed and turned into oxygen.
It's now 25 years since my first book came out. And I think it was the second book, now I can't remember anymore, that I exposed chemtrails, HARP, whatever. So I was really kind of at the foreground of that. 27 years later, I still see no information coming out ever from mainstream. If anything, the only information we get is that they start using, have you noticed on some of the news channels where they start using white streaks in the background of their sets? Yeah. They're putting subliminal chemtrails. Oh, you've got to really watch this. I think Fox News is one where you're watching the screen and all of a sudden you see these white streaks. It's like the logo or some sort of a graphic, and it's chemtrail, bloody subliminals, because it's got a blue background like sky, and then you see these white streaks going on like it's the logo for Fox News. And I'm going, oh, they're using, seriously, they're putting subliminal chemtrails into the news. Give me a freaking break. But it's still, you know, the question remains that still today, if I ask 99 people, maybe one will recognize that there's something unusual about having a grid over their head. And most of them just don't get it. They don't see it because, you know, it's been laid in there for 2-3 decades now. So it started with a one, and then it was another, and then, you know, and I was watching it since then going, that is not normal. And then, you know, but when you see these trails laid into perfect grids and the big X's, you know, it just, how can people, this is a rhetorical question, not see what is in front of them? And the answer is that's the best place to keep a secret, right in front of you.
Yeah. Well, hidden in plain sight. We know how the globalists love to taunt us with it, but it goes deeper into the whole notion of our free will, that if we knowingly see it transpiring. And remember how a couple of years ago they started colorizing old movies from the 20s and 30s? Well, in the 1950s and 60s movies, not only were some of them being colorized, but some scenes they would actually put in chemtrails.
That's right. That's
to make it
absolutely true.
normalized. Yeah. So to normalize what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I have a chapter of geoengineering in Beyond Esoteric. So I'm well versed on this. I've spoke to Dane Wigington on the phone, and I've spoken at chemtrail conferences with Clyde Lewis and others. And the overwhelming evidence of this happening on a global scale is very, very clear. Now, there was a great map that was going around about 4 or 5 years ago, and it showed all the countries that were doing it really heavily, sometimes occasionally. The real heavy countries are all the NATO countries. So Europe, you probably get them out there because you're still
very rare here on the
associated
island
with Portugal. Of course, here in Canada and US, we're getting nailed. But some countries are just sort of minimal. And then there's other countries where no activity is going on. So I have a expatriate friend that moved to Cambodia, and we used to play volleyball on Baker Beach in San Francisco, and we'd see him spraying all day and go home and check the weather report, and they'll say, oh, some high clouds moved in. I'm thinking, no way. I saw it all day. It was just these planes spraying these lines, which turn into these milky white clouds, and then they misidentify them as high clouds rolling in.
Yeah,
And
you know,
when you
and
see
one
it
of the
in
worst
real eyes-
places that I've been all over this planet, and I've seen chemtrails everywhere, even over Tibet, right?
Wow. Well,
Even
China
over
definitely
Tibet.
does it. China
So-
definitely does it. And you remember in China during the Olympics, the 2000 Olympics, they said, we guarantee it will not rain. They even admitted that they're going to geoengineer the skies. And sure enough, it did not rain at the 2000 Olympic Games.
Yeah,
in
well,
Beijing.
you know, and here on my island, it's the rare exception, but occasionally we have them here. And of course, what people need to understand, because a lot of people believe that the reason for the chemtrails is to poison the population. And that is also a benefit for them. But what they're really doing, of course, is, you know, setting up grids for their nefarious activities, including HARP and other technologies to mutate, alter, and destroy whatever they want to do with geoengineering. What I wanted to say was the worst trails I've ever seen, and like I said, I've been all over this planet, the worst are in London. So when I flew, the last few times I flew into London, which was probably the last times, I could see them from the plane. I could see the planes flying the trails while I was in the plane. While we were landing, I'm like, the planes, the sky was at a certain level full of laced with trails. And then when I flew back out, it was this opacity. There's very rarely do you get any blue anymore in London. Forget it. And then when we flew out and we flew above this goop, blue sky again, I thought, wow, we are really in trouble with this stuff. But
Yeah.
it's not just heavily populated areas, which are also a favorite, because like I said, I've seen them over Tibet when I was there, and that was 1996. I've seen them over Peru. So their population density is not the only factor.
Right, right. I saw them throughout South America, most especially over the Andes Mountains.
Yeah.
That they were spraying around there. But when I went to Antarctica 3 years ago, I was trying to watch the sky as much as I could because it was the midnight sun and the days were very long. Did not see any chemtrail activity in Antarctica. So there are places in the world where maybe the weather systems are not moving the clouds where it's needed. But in the Northern Hemisphere, we're getting nailed. But what I want to say about my expatriate friend in Cambodia, he's now been there 5-6 years. And he says not a single day has he ever seen chemtrails. And that was indicative on the map. Yeah, there are some countries that just opt out, that don't want to do it. Others who are wanting to be part of NATO that certainly will do it. But it's weather warfare. So Russia's doing it, China's doing it. You can do it to yourself, but you can't do it to other countries. That's why they like weather warfare so much, because sometimes those clouds they create can go over an adversary. So when China says, I guarantee it will not rain during the Beijing 2000 Olympics, they can make that statement and make it come true because they're doing it to themselves, just like London's doing it to the UK, just like we're doing it here in the US. Now, I did see here in America a little drop during the Trump years. There were some days that even went on to a week or two. We didn't see any chemtrail activity, but they're back in force now. And,
They are. So let me ask you this. So is your understanding that this is nation by nation?
Correct.
Really?
And region by region, like Antarctica, not showing any signs of doing it down there because there's no reason to do it there. There's no people down there. And
but you said they can opt in or out. Do you, I find it hard to believe that any nation can opt out of the mandate of the New World Order. So what is your understanding of that? I'd love to have more insights from you about that. Because I've always been asking myself, how is this global? I mean, how many planes are in the air every day? And, who's paying for this project? So any insight you can share, I'd love to hear.
Well, I think in the case of Cambodia, it's a very poor country. Not that they wouldn't be putting their hand out for any kind of donation from the richer countries, which would make this one of the stipulations. But I think it's far easier for the globalists to dictate what's going on in the air with any NATO countries. Those, as I recall from this map, and I should try to look it up and see if I can show it to you, because it gives a scale of how heavily they're doing it. So all countries that are associated with NATO in Europe, in North America, in Australia, New Zealand, get it real heavy. So those countries do, but then there are other countries that are sort of mild on the scale. Russia, China were kind of, as I recall, medium. And then other countries that just don't do it. And sure enough, when I asked my friend Steve-O, he's like, yeah, I've never seen a single chemi here. And he's a guy I used to play volleyball with in Baker Beach. So I think he knows what it looks like.
So what do you understand the primary reason for trails to be?
Well, it's a force multiplier. That's a military term for it has multiple uses. It started out as a way to control the weather. And I would also like to have some of your listeners who are on the fence on this to look at a website called weathermodificationhistory.com. So it's weathermodificationhistory, one word, .com.
I'll put it in the notes at the end.
Look, it's amazing. The one I'm looking at is weather modification. The Air Force came out with a document in '96 called Weather as a Force Multiplier. There's that term again. Owning.
It's in my latest book.
In 2025. Isn't it amazing? That site should just put a close to the debate, because look at the patents, the news articles, the government studies that have been coming out for decades.
That's right.
And so it was Secretary of Defense Cohen came out and said, and I'll paraphrase his quote, in '97, he said that other countries are engaged in this and we have to step up our game and get in this as well. So what I think he's saying is China, Russia, they're doing it. And if we don't do it as well, we're not going to be able to keep up with these guys. So
if that's the truth, because, whether who came up with this idea doesn't necessarily fit the narrative, right? But anyway, that's a moot point.
Yeah.
Okay, but what do you think the primary objective is? Weather alteration. Right. I mean, obviously we've heard also generals say we don't need to use bombs or real warfare. All we need to do is modify the weather. That is the ultimate weapon. If you can create a famine and we know it because we see it happening, you can bring a country to its knees.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there are parts of that that we're doing to them and they're doing to us. And that's what I think the Secretary of Defense Cohen was referring to, that that they're trying to make it so that they can keep it under the auspices of top secret national security. Actually, I did find this link to the geoengineering map, a half a century. Oh, and it's not letting me go to it. Wow, they might have
Well, it
already
doesn't
taken
matter because we can't see it anyway, but I will
Yeah.
put the link for people.
Okay.
Okay.
I just went to DuckDuckGo and typed in weather modification map by nation. And it comes up, you can see it, geoengineering, a half century of Earth system experimentation. And then it does show which countries, again, the NATO countries are in red, geoengineering hotspots, it says. Yellow, it's countries with some reported activity. And then there are countries with no reported geoengineering activity. And those are the poor countries. And some
That's
of the,
interesting because people are thinking right now, which leads us into our conversation for tonight. A lot of people are thinking about where they can move, where they can go. And, you know, one of the first places I would be thinking of is where can I go where there are no trails? So, you know, that is definitely a reference I will give to people at the end, and something to think about because they are definitely back with a vengeance. And I think that you'll agree that it also has to do with the thing that we can't talk about
yes,
and the dispersion. Dispersion is such a word as dispersion?
it is.
The dispersing of the metals, keeping
Yes.
people entrained, it's all there. And so what we want to talk about is where are we headed here? We're I mean, 2001 and 2020. Holy magoli, right? And there's a lot of despair now, and we've come into that period of time where we're seeing the people disappearing, let's put it that way, and a lot of fear and concern. And I think that we, as bringers of information and spiritual, let's call it leaders, are kind of not duty bound, but certainly have intention to help people see a way out here, see light at the end of this. I mean, it can't be that people, souls of a brilliant light, come into this earth determined to suffer and struggle and die in robotic AI entrainment. That just doesn't fit. It's something wrong with that that formula. So what do you think? I mean, AI is rampant and all of these destructive elements are rampant. What's our way out of this? What are your thoughts?
Well, on a personal level, you got to start thinking in terms of self-defense because they're slamming us from all these different ways, this soft kill agenda. And one of those ways people can take the initiative to help themselves, first to be aware that we are being poisoned, a wholesale poisoning. And that's one of the force multipliers to get heavy metals into our system, which are very, very difficult to extract. We know the rise in Alzheimer's, how people are having so many mental issues that have to do with heavy metals in the brain. So one thing I do daily, zeolite, it's one of the things that can get out heavy metals. It's part of my detox protocol, which
and I also have a zeolite product that I promote that is amazing. It's a colloidal zeolite, and I'm taking it all the time. And I noticed, the first thing I noticed was that the floaters in my eyes are gone.
Oh, nice. What were the floaters?
Yeah, you know, you don't know what floaters are?
You mean like the prions or the little...
You feel like you've got a hair in your eye, or there's little, right? They're gone. And, you know, they're always like in your peripheral vision.
Right,
so, yeah, I'm working with zeolite, and I really recommend that people are doing that. The protocols right now for taking care of yourself are all over the internet. But I think that one of the most important things people can do, I don't think we need to go into the protocols and vitamin D and the whole thing. People know that.
Right.
At least my audience does. But one of the things that I really want to impress is that never before has it been so important to detox heavy metals, because they're
That's
putting
right.
them in any way they
Yep.
can. It's
Any way they can.
chemtrails, it's the snake, it's, the food, whatever. So
Yep.
you've got to be vigilant, determined to constantly remove this plague, which is metals in the body.
Yep. And it's not by accident. It is certainly one of those things they know that if people blow it off, it's going to slowly catch up to them and end your life sooner. So that's why I say, look at it as self-defense. Look at it as a way that you're defending your body, your sacred temple, from all that is being done to us. And that's why I refer to this as prison planet, because
Yeah.
what other advanced civilization would ever do this to its own people unless there is a plan to keep us totally enslaved in a box of knowledge that they create the narrative that we believe. This has worked for a very long time. But I think because people are waking up, this great awakening, this resurgence of seeing all the hypocrisy in the world, all the lies that are coming out of the mainstream media, which is, of course, bought and owned and paid for by them. They own them all the big ones.
That's right.
That if people start seeing that this is an agenda to make us sick, which is known as a soft kill, that they will start to proactively go to your site and get zeolite and start looking at detox protocols. Because if you don't, you're going to end earlier than you have to. And we don't want that. For people that are waking up, we need you guys. We're the ground crew here, and we've
We're the
got to
ground
make
crew,
it
yeah.
work. We're really being relied upon to help other people wake up, because we're the early adapters. We're learning this stuff early. We know it. It's part of our DNA at this point, Patricia. I know you and I, you can't go back. It's Pandora's box. We have opened it up, and we have seen what they're doing to the rest of the world and to us. So take a proactive, self-defensive posture and do yourself right. Go to the website Patricia just mentioned and get some of the zeolite. I really do believe it works, and I've seen it.
Well, I'll be putting the link. It's called Touchstone Pure Body Extra. And I'm taking it, and I've got a lot of people who have started taking it, and they offer a really great deal to my audience. So here it is, and I'll have the link later. But I'm, and when they first brought me in, they involved me. They said, "Would you be willing to interview our CEO?" And I said, "Sure." And they said, "We'll send you a sample." And I started using it, and I was like, "Oh yeah," because I've had zeolite and the diatomaceous clay, and it's too much work for me. I don't, and the thing is that there's problems with the fact that it's going through your digestive system, whereas this is going right into the cells because it's colloidal. I'm all for colloidal products, including silver, of course, as well, considering what you deal with. So what did I want to say? Hold on. Oh, no other planet would we see them doing this to their people. Well, I think we're invaded, first of all. So we are not a species that these beings want to see survive, because they don't have love. They don't understand the concept of human emotion, the range that we have. And the fact that in my work, and you're probably familiar with it as well, we were designed to be 12-stranded Christed beings, and that was interfered with because they don't want light in this sector of the galaxy. They don't want it at all, but certainly not here on a mineral-rich planet that they want to suck the juice out of and have been doing for so long. So let's just turn them all into robots and be done with the whole biological species. This is what we are faced with right now. Would you agree?
Not only would I agree, I would say that they have stated their intentions in stone that they want to depopulate this planet by 90%. Just look at the #1 tenant on the Georgia Guidestones, which was put up by an anonymous, very wealthy person. Some say it was Ted Turner because it's right outside of Georgia, where the CNN headquarters was, the Cartoon News Network, which is notorious for spinning a whopper. And I think people really, especially in America, need to understand, but I would say the other Western countries have been opted into this whole idea that Well, in 2012, in the NDAA, they slipped in some clauses that made it legal for the media to lie to us. It was always for our benefit. So you have to understand that everything they're doing to us, from the chemtrails to lying in the media to putting toxins into our food by the FDA, Fraud and Death Administration, who is not putting an end to these things we can't talk about. How is that possible? Patricia, just last week, I got a call from the FDA. I was getting some eye pills sent to me. They said, we're not putting it through. We're not going to release those. We're going to destroy those. You can't have them. Sorry. Boy, I wish I would have known he was calling, because I would have really laid into him and say, what is the FDA really doing? What are you really about? What are you really enforcing? Remember when there was E. coli in the spinach a year or two ago? Oh boy, they recalled those in an instant. How come the other thing isn't getting recalled? So there's so much hypocrisy in the world, and these are captured organization. All these 3-letter agencies in America, they're all captured. So the depth of corruption is so deep. That's why it's taking a while to root them out. The White Hat, the Resistance, the Alliance, it's doing what they can, but that's why it's a slow going effort, because they had basically captured so many operations, from the judicial to the legislative. I mean, look at what's coming out in this Maxwell trial about how so many very influential people have been compromised. The way they've been using this honeypot method of getting people in a compromising position, then you can blackmail them.
Is that coming out? Is that coming out in the
indirectly? You know how they're trying to bury this news story. They are here in America. Everything is going on the new strain, and rather than what really matters.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these people who have interests or control the media, they do not want this talked about. So maybe it's all going to be a show trial, and she gets off as the madame. I see they're already positioning the defense that way, that, oh, she was just taking orders from the other guy, and we'll see how this goes. But I don't really have much faith that justice will be served in this case.
I don't either. But at least it's some more is getting out. There are people who will make sure that more will get out, because there are some freedom fighters in this country, in America and elsewhere, and they're not just going to let it completely be buried. But yeah, they've got the cards are stacked.
Cards are stacked, and they have been for a long
stacked,
time.
baby.
Yeah.
And when you think about all of the people who are involved in this horrific trafficking, they're in the judicial system, they're in the politic, they're in the police, they're everywhere, the doctors. It's just horrific. But anyway, we cannot lose the faith, because even the darkest darkness can be weakened with light. And, there are people still pushing through and just not accepting it. There are some pretty interesting people in Washington, D.C. And one can say, oh yeah, they're all part of the game. But I don't believe that. I think Jim Jordan and Ted Cruz and these people are really fighting a good fight. And I'd like to hope.
They are, and we need them. And Rand Paul questioning.
Rand Paul, yeah. And Josh, what's his name?
These are
Josh?
doctors too. Rand Paul is a doctor. He was an eye doctor for many years, so he knows what he's talking about. It's not just pulling a rabbit out of the hat here at some of these congressional hearings. They're really going at it from a scientific point of view.
Yeah.
So there are freedom fighters in there, but they're outnumbered for sure by those who have been compromised.
That's right.
By those who are still blackmailed. Those are the people that got to go.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, because they're protected by the same people who've been through the same blackmail process. It is a mess. So,
it's a total mess.
It's a total mess. And sometimes it is so overwhelming that we really lose the faith. But I think that our numbers are growing and our voice is louder. And they just, it's the classic finger in the dam. I mean, they just can't keep filling up all these holes. They're over here and then this happens and they're over here. And I think they're really panicking. By the way, have you noticed the change in voice of Mr. Joe?
Yeah, and I've also noticed the change in his ear shape and other features, very subtle features in
I've
his.
always known that, seen moments that look like masks, but in the last few times he's spoken, it's a completely different voice. Very
Yeah,
coherent. I mean, he puts an in there just to play the role, but it's not his voice.
right.
And enough that obviously someone addressed it and he said, "I've got a cold." I'm like, "No, you've got somebody else wearing your mask, dude." It is
Right.
amazing to be living in a time when everything is so, well, we're in the fourth dimension. Everything is upside down, and it's kind of like the Truman Show 24/7, right?
But at least now we can start seeing through the lies and the deception so much easier than we could just say 5 years ago.
That's right.
To those who basically have opened this Pandora's box and seen how much deception there is in the world, it's just absurd, to the point where it's laughable or even surreal.
It's surreal.
The lengths they go to try to deceive us time and time again, and it is not working. So people who basically tune out the mainstream, which I haven't watched television in over 5 years. In fact, if I go into a room and it's on, I find how disturbing it is, and also how susceptible I am to looking at it, because they know that the television creates a frequency that locks you in, and it'll put you to sleep. It'll put you in a theta state. And that's why people crash on the couch watching the news or TV, and they know they got you then, because they're subliminally then programming.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, there's the flicker, and it's a technology designed to put you into hypnotic state, so that when they put out the program through the hypnotic state, you're completely suckered in. I mean, imagine people that sit there and watch this 24/7. I can't be in a room with a television on. I haven't had television for 25 years. I think that one of the ways that we can say, why are some people awake and not affected by all this shit and others are not, I think one of the ways is the television. Oh, you're frozen. Let's hope you come back.
So not to preach to the choir to your audience, Patricia, because I know they probably don't either. But do you notice how even for those of us who never watch it, but if you go into a restaurant or a bar and it's way off in the distance, right? Somebody's watching a sports match, how the eye just gets attracted. It's kind of like the way a moth comes to the flame. Our eyes are attracted. And another technique that's used on television when they're even doing a promo for a show, one of these FBI shows, and my mom used to watch it, and sometimes I'd come and stay with her and come out in the show and be like, "Oh, there's going to be this great surge in people needing what we can give them injection wise. How are we going to get it to all the people?" So they're predictive programming through these shows. Let's not forget the CIA through Operation Mockingbird has been instrumental in putting not only agents in the news agency and the 4 a.m. talking points. The fax machine goes off every morning at 4 a.m. From Langley, Virginia. Here's your news stories for the day. But they have put it into the scripts in Hollywood, put it into television, and people who are not aware that they are being programmed. And isn't it interesting that television is called programming?
Exactly.
Tell, lie, vision, that don't even realize the extent in which they are being mentally manipulated. That's how they get them. That's how people believe this stuff so strongly, and will fight people like you and I.
I absolutely agree, and just keep driving this to everyone. The television is the #1 invasive format, and the cell phone is #2. And pretty soon, well, probably already, the cell phone has taken the #1 spot because you've got it here. So besides the programming that you're getting from the television, the programming now that you're getting from the phone is you're also getting radiated dramatically because you've got it right here all the time. So, I keep telling people, please, please, please get rid of the television. But the truth is that most people don't know what to do with themselves without television.
Right.
And especially now that so many people are locked up home, and by the way, about to be locked up more than they even dreamed. And so the television is the go-to. And it's so sad to see a family of four sitting at dinner all, uh-huh,
right?
uh, I just, I come from in my childhood, I had a very strict father who was a big pain in the ass, to be honest, but Italian upbringing. And the table, when you're at the table, you had to share your day and be
Yeah,
polite. Remember those days?
yeah.
Long
Let's
gone.
bring them back.
Yeah, let's bring them back indeed, because children need it, and we need some structure here. There's no structure. It's just everything's falling apart. So, because I entitled this talk 2022, Where Are We Headed? What do you see as the new, I call it the new frontier. So we
Mm.
have to get through this, because if we don't, we're just going to be a bunch of robots. And that's the scenario that I don't see for everyone. I think some people will go there. But I personally think we're going to be looking at some real frontier type realities where we're localizing in small communities and bartering. I think we're going to go back to that. I think we already are,
In
but the
many ways, we already
necessity is
are.
going to be there very soon. And I certainly am trying to get people to recognize the fact that now is the time to really understand life is not going to go back to what it was. We are learning how not to be consumers, which is already a good thing, actually. But the people that have always just snapped their fingers and had it there are going to be very shocked at the new frontier, where you're not going to be having all those things. You're not going to need them, first of all. You're not going to need a gorgeous wardrobe and 27,000 pairs of shoes and watches and all this crap, because you'll be needing to eat and survive and help the neighbor. And I think it's very exciting. It's scary, but it's exciting. What are your thoughts?
Scary but exciting. I totally agree. And you put your finger on it. There are things we're absolutely going to need: food, for example, fresh water, a community who gets it, because we're being pitted brother against brother. It's the new civil war in many ways, and by design, of course, to get us into this fear-like state. Because when you're in fear, you are not thinking rationally. You're not using logic. You're just reacting. Ah, it's coming. Wow, what are we gonna do? Fear, more fear. And then and we can go into the fourth dimensional archonic entities that feed off of that fear, that love humans in a fear state. But when you step out of that and you look back and say, there's nothing to be afraid of. Okay, sure, there will be supply chain disruptions in 2022 like we've never seen before, because our whole lives, Patricia, we've just been used to going to the store and getting whatever we need.
Yeah.
Well, that's coming to an end. So I'd say get what you need now and be prepared. Yeah, we're going to have to go back to barter. We're going to have to go back to items that hold real value: gold, silver, barterable, owning your own car, owning your own land. And that's my next challenge: is I want to buy a house outright. I don't even want to deal with a bank anymore. I can't stand them. They're just done so much damage in the world. And
Are you able to do it in Santa Cruz? That is not cheap real estate.
not here. No, I'm undisclosed location, out of state even.
Good.
Because I see these crazy blue state governments are just going to implode. They already are.
They
The
already are.
homelessness is off the charts. The level of poverty I've never seen before. How people are able to live this way. And what choice do you have when you're just cast out, when you have nothing? You know how hard it is for someone to rebuild their lives when they're totally broke. Even if they're good people, where are you going to live? Who's going to hire you? How are you going to make an income? And it's very, very difficult for these people who fall through the cracks. And they're all coming out here to California and Florida because they can camp in their car or in tents all year round here. And so we're just getting flooded. Oakland, San Francisco, here in Santa Cruz, where I'm at, right across the street, huge homeless camp. Now, for the most part, they're nice, they're benign. And I talk to them. I even give them a donation. They want $1 and they're asking, I'll give it to them. It's fine. And my car's been broken into, but it's okay. I mean, that's not okay, but people are doing what they have to do. But do you remember a quote from the French Revolution? The aristocracy knows this very well. Ever since the French Revolution, there's a saying that societal breakdown, total chaos, is only 8 meals away. And this is why I suspect they make cheeseburgers for 99 cents, where an apple is a $1.50. If you can give the people real cheap food, which is also part of this slow kill operation we're talking about, then they're not going to revolt. But if those supply chains fully break down and what you have in your shelves, and I was here in the 1989 earthquake, actually, the big one, the Loma Prieta, I've not seen supermarket shelves go bare in a few hours as they did right after a disaster. Now, this disaster could be totally orchestrated in such a way we're already seeing it. Oh, the supply chains are breaking down. Oh, the food, we're not getting what we need into the stores for people. Well, whatever black swan event they're going to use to say, oh, now it's every man for himself, then it's going to be a very fearful situation. But I think those of us who have prepared ahead of time are going to weather this storm a whole lot better than those who are just blindsided by it all.
Yeah, I mean, Bill Gates told us 8 months ago that the next big problem was going to be the food supply, so I guess he knew.
Oh yeah, and he's growing it. He owns more farmland in
He keeps buying it all up so that to assure that there's no food. It's all so diabolique. But yeah, I mean, the message is loud and clear for those who are listening, and a lot of people are. A lot of us are doing what we can to not only to prep, because I mean, how do you prep? How do you know? 10 years, 2 years, you know, all you can do is start making to have a new approach to food, and to say to yourself, you know, because I'm doing it. It's like I'm dehydrating food and I'm getting freeze dry food. And the question is, how long could this be? And we don't have that answer, but for God's sakes, at least get yourself stocked up for 3, 4, 6 months at least. Yeah. And, you know, when people tell me I don't have the money to do that, and I'm like, well, okay. Change something so you have it. Because
a 5-pound bag of beans and a 50-pound bag of rice.
Tell me you don't have it. Yeah.
It won't be a very interesting diet, but you'll stay alive. And a water source. So I would say also get a way to purify water.
Berkey.
Yep, that's a good one. But let's even assume that the power goes out and we've got to go to a local stream or something. The Swiss have a really good pump that I have that you can just put a hose in the water and then another hose in a water bottle and just kind of pump it through the filtration system. Have something like that going on, because water is really the key. You know,
maybe
you can
give me that information later. You can send it to me and I'll add it to the information that I put on the interview. And yeah, the Berkey filter, what I love about the Berkey is that it's portable. You can take it with you and you can fill it up. Have you ever used Berkey? I mean, it is an extraordinary.
I have, and it takes out fluoride too. One of the few filters.
Yeah, and you can buy an additional filter to take out arsenic.
Wow.
It's extraordinary filter, and you can put it, you know, in the stream. And I mean, that's the one thing that I would say to everybody. If there's one thing you need to think about, it's getting yourself a Berkey or similar product where you know that in really rough times you can pull water out of a lake or a stream and be safe.
Because, you know, we can live 40 days with just water, no food. But you can only live 3 days with no water. So water is so key to this whole survival scenario. And look, neither one of us want to see this happen. Neither one of us feel like this is going to be a good thing in any ways, but we have to be prepared. Once again, this is self-defense. We're just protecting ourselves and our friends and our family, our loved ones around us in the event this gets really bad. And in 2022, we ain't seen nothing yet. I think it's all lining up for the big collapse. Of course, they want to usher in the Great Reset and Build Back Better, and we've heard all their marketing slogans, and it's all crap. But what we represent, Patricia, is the Great Awakening. People seeing through the lies, knowing that there is an anti-human depopulation agenda and how to counter it. And that's what we all need to be doing right now.
Yeah, there are people that are always saying, I wish you wouldn't be scary, and I wish you wouldn't go to the fear place. And I constantly tell people, look, I am not in fear. I am practical. I'm pragmatic. I am looking forward seeing. And I know that my option is to prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Yep.
And so I won't be one of those people that gets caught with their pants down going, there's nothing on the shelves. Now what do I do? I will have things on my shelves. And so, it's a really important time for people to be reevaluating their relationship. Like you said, it's a self-defense situation. This is war, baby. And you better know what to do for yourself to prepare for the new frontier. And so I think that we're looking at going through a war that's perpetrated on the whole planet and getting to the other side of it. And then it's going to look different than it's looked before. So I don't think that we get, bingo, it goes away and everything goes back. It's not going back. That part of our lives is history. And, another thing that to always remember is that we wanted change.
Right.
We talked about how we wanted to we wanted ascension. We wanted to shift into another reality, another dimension. Well, we are. It's just we didn't know there was going to be this hard.
Well, it's a metamorphosis. It's really the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. And we do have to go through this period of pain to shake off the yoke of our oppressors that have been so ironclad in keeping this a prison planet. But when we go through this metamorphosis, we have a new term, prism planet. Then we're going to bring in the beauty, the multidimensionality, the human abilities, which have been stifled. Indeed. Can you imagine how advanced we would be if, say, in kindergarten, we started learning about the chakras? In first grade, we started to open our pineal gland and decalcify it. In second grade, we started astral traveling. And in third grade, we were already using telekinesis to shape matter around us. Can you imagine how advanced the human race would be?
Well, I think some children are coming in with that.
How much longer we'll live, too, when the med beds and the 6,000 plus patents get released. So there is great promise in the future, but we have to go through the metamorphosis first.
Yeah, I love that prism planet. That's a beautiful thought. All right, well, the time has flown yet again with you, but I want to make sure to have time for you to show everybody your latest book and give everybody whatever information you want them to have of how to investigate your work.
Thank you, Patricia. Well, the new book is called Beyond Esoteric, and Beyond the Matrix is your show. So we're both going beyond things here, and escaping prison planet for now, but let's change that to prism planet in the coming years. And people need to stay alive. People need to be informed and have the information that they need to be productive and healthy, wealthy, and wise, because all that is hidden will be revealed. And that's what I did in my 3-book series. In the esoteric series I'm just an information junkie. I just love this stuff. I glom onto it. I've seen through the lies for a long time. I'm going beyond the matrix here and putting this all together in this series of books. You're so wonderful in your books and your show to help people to understand this very complex issue of who we are and what our role is in this world and what we're up against, what we have to deal with. And as we've been saying on this show tonight, this is self-defense. This is you protecting yourself, because they're coming at us. And now we see it so clear as day. If we did this show 5 years ago, people would say, what are you guys talking about? Now I think it's quite obvious to everybody that we're being lied to on a wholesale basis, and we're being poisoned in this slow kill anti-human depopulation agenda. But look, we've got the numbers. We've got close to 8 billion of us here on this planet.
That's
And
fair.
if we can just keep that, even half of that would be a huge number to get us through this metamorphosis period. Even if there is going to be a culling, there are those that are opting out of all these things that are being pushed on us. And we can be the ones that take us through. And it probably is going to be a few years. I can't see it really getting really bright until the end of this decade even. So we're going to have some rocky years ahead, and most especially 2022, because this cabal, these globalists, this world network, Illuminati of the past, as they've rebranded themselves now, they're on their last breaths. I do believe they're on their heels. And one good way of knowing that is this conversation wouldn't be happening if they had complete control and censorship over everybody and everything. It would always be their narrative or nothing. So the fact that we can even still get our information out, publish books that are going to help people, is going counter to this prism
For now.
planet agenda. For now. But hey, we're going to keep on keeping on, because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
That's what we do in our lives, and we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I got cancel cultured by my former publisher because I
I
did
heard
question
about
their narrative, and I've been picked up by Inner Traditions. I'm thrilled about that. So we keep on doing what
Fantastic.
we do. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So just remember that, people. And yeah, there's a lot of censorship. I'm doing my best to keep this channel open. So when you make your comments, please remember to avoid the words that make them so angry. And let's think, a little bit outside the box so that we can keep the narrative going. All right, everybody, you've been listening to the wonderful Brad Olsen. I'll have him back on because, he's a real, this is, when you talk to someone who is right on your wavelength, it's very invigorating and empowering. And I'm sure it is for all of you who are listening. So thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Matrix. I'll be back soon, and I'll have Brad back on for sure. Thanks, everybody. This is Patricia Cori signing out. Love you. Take care.